In this video, we'll try to write a SQL query to get a list of users with only failed transactions, excluding those who eventually succeeded. So we have a transactions table here with the amount, currency, the status of the transaction, whether it failed or it succeeded, the description, and the customer email. And would like to get a list of failed transactions, right? But we do not want to include those failed transactions that eventually succeeded. For instance, John Doe had a failed transaction, but he tried again and then he was successful. Jane Smith had two failed transactions and was eventually successful. So we do not want to include these results in our result set. We only want failed transactions that were not eventually successful, like Emma Purple, Frank Teal, Grace Orange, and so on. So how we're going to do this is firstly we're going to filter to see only the failed transaction. So we'll say where status is failed. When we run this, we can see only the failed transaction. However, we still have a list of those guys that failed at first but were eventually successful, like John Doe and Jane Smith. So we do not want these guys to appear in our result set. What we can do is we can then get a list of the successful transactions and then compare the list. So we'd say if you had a failed transaction, for instance, John Doe, Jane Smith, but your email is also in the list of successful transactions, then your email should not appear in the result set. So John Doe, if we get a list of successful transactions, John Doe and Jane Smith will also be there because they were eventually successful. So let's try to get a list of successful transactions where status equals succeeded. If we run this, would see that these were the successful transactions. John Doe and Jane Smith are also there. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to say give us a list of failed transactions, then check the email list. If the customer email was also in the successful transaction, do not show it to us. So we're basically adding two filters. Firstly, the transaction has to have failed, and secondly, the email should not be present in the successful transactions. So how we do that is we are going to select all the columns from the trans table. The first filter is where the status is failed, then we add another filter, and the customer email is not in the list of successful transactions. And remember, this is the query that gave us the successful transactions, so we'll use this as our nested query. So let me indent this for readability. Yeah, so we have our two filters here. Basically shows the transactions where firstly the status is failed, so it will give us a list of this, and secondly the customer email is not in the list of successful transactions. So it will check for John Doe. John Doe is in the list of successful transactions, so it will not give us in our result set. Jane Smith is also in the list of successful transactions, so it will not appear in our result set. Our result set will only contain failed transactions that are not in the list of successful emails. So if I run this, I can get a list of failed transactions that were not eventually successful. So we have 5 emails here. We can then reach out to these people, follow up, see what was wrong, and try to offer a solution.